and we say, oh, what are these other jobs? We want to know what all the other jobs are and what all the other areas to focus on would be. And they say, oh, no, we'll tell you that in third year.
Yeah.
And so that was, we kind of got tired of that pretty quick.
We sure did.
Yeah.
Even like right up in first year, and we would ask stuff like, when can we tour studios? When can we like talk to industry professionals? When can we do all these things? And they'd be like, oh, you're going to do that in third year. And I'm like, but in third year, we're almost done. Like, we want to know what's out there now so that we can kind of shape our education towards what we want to do. Because not everyone that takes the animation program wants to be an animator.
Welcome to Evening with an Artist, a podcast created by students for students, where animation junkies Jordan and Rich geek out about animation, interview industry professionals, and ask the questions you want answered. I'm Rich, and I love cartoons.
I'm Jordan, and I make cartoons.
Hey guys, welcome to Evening with an Artist. This is going to be our first introductory episode where we're going to tell you who we are and why you may or may not care about listening to our opinions on things.
Exactly.
and why we do this podcast, because that's important.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. So I'm Rich, and of course that's Jordan, and as you've just heard, we are animation junkies. I certainly do love animation. I have always loved animation. I mean, since I was a kid, I grew up in the 80s, 90s when, in my opinion, animation was the best then.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, in everyone else's opinion, animation was the best when they were like 8.
Yeah.
Or 6 to 8. And that's totally fair. I always loved animation, and I always wanted to be doing cartoons. You know, I was one of those kids with the sketchbook all the time. I'd go out for recess at school and I'd have my sketchbook, and other kids would be playing and I'd be sitting against the wall, drawing dumb pictures, which was great. And 90% of you are probably in the same boat. Great cartoons all around me all the time. Ninja Turtles, He-Man, Thundercats, Real Ghostbusters, Care Bears.
Care Bears.
Those were the things that raised me. Wonderful World of Disney would play Disney movies every Sunday night on CBC. They don't do that anymore. I guess they have them on demand now, so you can watch them all the time. But back then, we got them every Sunday, and we got to watch what they told us to watch.
Back then, before the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, in the caveman times that I grew up in.
When they decided when you watch stuff, you didn't decide.
Yeah. So anyways, I wanted to be an animator since I was aware of what animation was and that people actually made these things and they didn't just exist in a different world like Roger Rabbit would have us believe. I was fortunate when I was, young in high school. I was fortunate that my dad would be taking me to the Ottawa International Animation Festival, so I could see a lot of cool up and coming things, and I would always go to all the tables and ask all the different schools, all the animators, what does it take to be an animator? How can I be an animator? I want to be an animator so bad. And they were basically you have to draw all the time, and if you have 5 minutes at a bus stop and you aren't spending that time drawing, then obviously you don't want to be an animator, so you should just take your own life or something. That was always that kind of vibe that you would get when you talk to animators back then. I think it's different now. But back then, they all kind of had the same thing to say, which was drill yourself until your fingers are bleeding, and then use your blood to keep animating.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
So eventually, I just kind of slowly gave up on it, and life happens, and things change, and families get divorced, and eventually, all I was ever drawing was pictures of cartoon mushrooms smoking joints, and I was okay, I don't think this is going to get me anywhere. So I dropped out of high school, and just went into full-time work in the food service for the next 15 years, where I met Jordan, working at Dairy Queen.
Good old Dairy Queen.
A long time ago.
I
think it's at least 10 years ago.
It's at least 10 years ago.
Maybe 15 years ago.
Maybe, yeah. Because school is,
maybe 12, 13, I don't know. But yeah, it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
and then we didn't talk for a while. And then...
things happened. We didn't talk for a while.
Yeah, and then things happened. And then we ended up going into animation eventually. which I think I'll let Jordan tell more of that story
Yeah, sure.
later on. Well, yeah, I guess I'll just start because I want to flow this.
Okay.
So Jordan, after like not talking for about 10 years, after not working at Dairy Queen, Jordan reached out to see if I wanted to get coffee, and we went for a coffee, and she let me know that she's going into this pre-animation program, which did not exist when I was in high school trying to figure out how to get into animation. And this pre-animation program is basically a portfolio development program to get you into animation. And I was like, well, that's crazy. I've never heard of this thing.
Finally, something accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. But I've been working full time for a long time. So Jordan says, you have to take this with me. And I say, ha ha ha. Yeah.
Jokes.
And then I think I texted her like 2 days later or something and said, I enrolled. We're going into animation.
One of the biggest shocks of my life.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Mine too. One of.
Yeah.
There were more to come. So we did that. We got into the winter intake pre-animation. We started going to Life Drawing Initiative. It was awesome. We were terrible.
Yep, sure were.
But we passed that with honors and got into the animation program with 2 weeks of summer in between the two.
Yep.
And then over those 2 weeks, my father got diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. 2 weeks later, like right at the start of school, my mother got diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. So after the first semester, like I made it through the first semester, and then everyone was kind of getting worse, and I talked to the profs and the coordinators, and they said, like, you should withdraw from the program. So I withdrew from the program temporarily to deal with that family dying situation.
Yep.
And no sooner did I withdraw from the program than COVID hit, and everybody went into lockdown, and all the learning went online.
Yeah.
And so when I tried to get back into the program a year later, going into second semester, it was the second semester of a digital program.
Yeah.
Which when we were taking it, it was all hand drawn, and we were barely touching digital by the time we started second semester.
And they didn't want us to.
No,
it was like paper.
Yeah.
Which not necessarily a bad thing, but
yeah. But so suffice it to say, for my story, I didn't make it through. So now I'm back at work and doing this podcast, which is awesome. Yeah.
And again, it's a series of unfortunate events occurred, and the program changed so much that it was in no way accessible, especially because when you withdrew, you went back in the middle of first year. You were in class with all these kids that had been using the programs and stuff and got introduced digitally for the first semester.
Yeah.
And nobody was there to support you.
Especially
when you hadn't been
not
doing any
being
of that.
In a classroom.
Yeah.
When, it's a lot more isolating when you're in that environment of I'm just home alone and I don't really know how to reach out to people. If there was someone around, I could say hey, can you show me how to do this thing? But you don't want to be the person constantly reaching out to your prof. I don't understand how this magic machine works.
I know.
Because they're 60 and they don't understand it either. So.
It's hard, and you should reach out and again, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, someone who doesn't like asking for help, it went poorly.
Yeah.
I passed everything except for a layout.
Oh,
come on. But anyways. And that was it. That was how I got here.
That's your journey so far.
Yeah. Jordan, how did you get here?
So I got here very differently. I don't have that classic, spent my whole life drawing kind of story that a lot of kids have when they start this kind of artistic journey. I was always really creative and I liked drawing in my spare time, but I didn't do it a lot. And I actually had a lot of kind of self-doubt and block around drawing, so I kind of didn't really do it because I was so worried about doing things poorly. However, I did always love cartoons. I was a Disney kid. I didn't have cable and stuff like that. I didn't really have any TV channels growing up for the most part, especially when we lived in the country. You couldn't get anything. So I would watch and rewatch my VHS Disney movies over and over all the time. So I was
wear out those tape heads.
I just wore my tapes down to, but it was great. And Disney movies they were amazing. They were a great thing to see and start up. I definitely feel I've missed out on a lot of nostalgia from other things, but either way, that's how I got into animation. That's what I loved. Now, growing up, though, I didn't ever consider that's something that I could do. Like, I knew that people made these things, but I never thought that that was a possibility for some random kid in Ottawa that, like, wasn't very good at school.
Yeah.
And when I was in school, like, I always tried to do art program stuff, but I had a lot of pressure from, like, my family, like, oh, like, don't do art. Like, artists are starving, and, like, it's not a good idea. You need a job that makes money. And so I ended up, you know, kind of going along school with that mentality, kind of really pushing back that creative side of myself. That ended up rolling into, so when I went to college, I've taken 3 college programs in total. The first program I took was practical nursing, which I did from start to finish. I even did my CPNRE and passed that, but I decided not to work in the nursing industry because it wasn't for me. And again, it was very, like, pushed on me. Not actually something I really wanted to do, but I thought it was what I was supposed to do. Between that and my next degree, I went back to Dairy Queen mostly. I worked with you again for a bit, and then I ended up working as a cake decorator at another Dairy Queen for many, many years. That creative outlet was really good for me, but I wasn't happy there, so I decided to go back to school again. So I took early childhood education, and that was great. I worked in that for a while, but again, it just still wasn't really what I wanted. It wasn't until I met my last partner, my ex, who's an animator, when I realized that animators are a thing. Like, it sounds crazy that I didn't ever
and that there are animators in Ottawa and animation studios.
And I had no idea. And, like, I guess it just felt like a dream that, like, was silly to even look into. And I just never realized that was something I can do. And as I got introduced into this world that's right here in Ottawa, and I was like, what do you mean you work on cartoons? Like, you can do that here? Like, what are you talking about? That's crazy.
And they're making Disney shows here.
Yeah, they're making Disney shows and Netflix shows and, like, stuff that I would actually watch. So that's really cool. So a few, like, after kind of seeing that world and getting into that and just always been in awe of, like, all of his friends and the people that I met and the things that I got to see that they did, I decided to go on ahead and just apply to school and change my career path for a third time. Yeah, like Rich said, I looked him back up, and we became friends again and went into classes again. And
you looked me up in the yellow pages.
Yeah, in the old yellow pages, the dusty ones.
In the phone book.
And since then I've never looked back. So we did, like you said, we did pre-an together in first year. I stayed in the program and finished my third year just this past summer, which is crazy because part of me feels like the animation program was years ago, and then part of me feels like it didn't even end.
You're like an animation veteran now.
It's kind of crazy that it's going to be, you know, it's more than 6 months since...
Is it more than 6 months?
I think it's, a little more than 6 months since I graduated, or about 6 months since I graduated. The animation program is intense. It's really, really hard. I totally recommend it if it's something you want to do, but just don't take it lightly. It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough in my third year, I was able to get an internship at Mercury Filmworks, which is where I currently work. So I did an internship there during my final semester, which I highly recommend getting an internship rather than staying in classes, because it's just so much more rewarding and you learn so much more being on the job. And there's a lot less of that, like, on the job pressure, just because you're an intern and that's your job, is to learn. And but yeah, and then I got hired after that, and it's been incredible, and I love it. And just to clarify, I'm a 2D junior animator currently.
Right.
Yeah.
Doing the drawings and stuff.
Doing the stuff.
Not really drawing.
Not really drawing. Oh, I draw a little. You learn about the industry. When you get in it, once you're animating, it really depends on where you work and what you're working on, how much drawing actually happens.
Very little, only if you're, like, missing a specific asset, like a
hand
at the right angle or something.
Yeah, I draw, like, certain things.
Now let's backpedal a little bit.
Yes.
And talk about why we wanted to do this podcast.
That's right.
When we were in pre-an.
That's
I guess
right.
we didn't really want to when we were in pre-an, but like the seeds were planted
The seeds were planted.
out of frustration and neglect.
Exactly. So essentially, Evening with an Artist, it started as not a podcast at all, really. It sort of followed the same parameters, but basically what happened is in pre-an and first year, you and I were really frustrated with the things that we weren't learning that we knew were out there.
Yeah.
We wanted to talk to people that were currently working in the industry. We wanted to understand what all the positions were in the industry, which, spoiler alert, there's a lot of them.
Yes.
And there's still a lot that I probably don't know.
And it's one of those, like, when you start pre-an or drawing foundations or whatever they're calling it right now, they start telling you right away that, you know, the animation program will focus on animation and layout, but there's a whole umbrella of jobs in there. You can get any kind of different jobs all in animation. And then we would say, well, what are these jobs? Like, you know, can you give us a breakdown? And I know they'll tell you that stuff later.
Yeah.
They'll tell you that in the animation program what the other jobs are. And then we get into the animation program and we say, oh, what are these other jobs? We want to know what all the other jobs are and what all the other areas to focus on would be. And they say, oh, no, we'll tell you that in third year.
Yeah.
And so that was, we kind of got tired of that pretty quick.
We sure did.
Yeah.
Even like right up in first year, and we would ask stuff like, when can we tour studios? When can we like talk to industry professionals? When can we do all these things? And they'd be like, oh, you're going to do that in third year. And I'm like, but in third year, we're almost done. Like, we want to know what's out there now so that we can kind of shape our education towards what we want to do. Because not everyone that takes the animation program wants to be an animator.
Yeah.
There are layout artists, there are FX artists, there are all kinds of different things you can do in the industry. You don't have to start as an animator.
Yeah.
You can. There's nothing saying that you can't switch around later on. I don't know. It was so closed-minded, everything.
Yeah.
Everything was very closed off.
Like, there's comps and there's builds and there's all kinds of things in the animation program. Like, they weren't even touching things like builds because they're teaching you everything at that time on paper. So builds aren't a thing. You just know how to draw in 3D. But then you get into a studio and you're using these rigs that are all like built and coordinated with, you know, pivot points everywhere. And you got to know how to make everything work and turn and how to like switch pieces out for different pieces, you know, facing a different direction, like stuff like that. Like, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of learning curve that they did not have worked into the program.
That's right.
At the time.
Things are changing, and some like silver lining to how the program changed to online is that they've changed kind of the basis of the program, so that there is more learning. They're starting to get more into like the other things. It just didn't happen for us.
Yeah.
And so what happened is a friend of mine, who was an animator, I reached out to them and I was like, hey, I have all of these questions. Like, Rich and I have all these questions that we want answers to that you might have. Can we have a video chat conversation with you so that we can, like, essentially interview you and get all these questions answered?
Live stream it out to all our classmates.
Exactly. And then it turned out, I was like, oh, well, I have all these people that are going to have the same questions. Can they join us? And it ended up becoming this whole night where I live streamed this interview with this animator, and a bunch of students got a bunch of information and all of their questions answered. People got to submit their own questions. Probably
like 2 or 3 hour interview.
Yeah, it was, and it was good. And we're talking like literally he had his phone open and was talking at home. Like, we're not talking amazing quality or anything like that, but like we did what we could. The time that we had.
And for a bunch of first years to be able to just pick the brain of the studio animator through his cell phone camera, like it was. Yeah, it was great.
It was amazing.
It was great.
And after that, we had such a great time, and we were so inspired, and I was like, okay, well, that was an animator, but what about the people in our class that want to hear from a layout artist and things like that? And so I found another friend, because luckily I knew a few people back then, and...
You don't know anybody anymore, but you knew people back then.
I found another person, and we did another thing.
We got a layout artist. We got a storyboard artist.
Yep.
We got an effects artist.
Yeah. Oh. It was so great. And we kept getting more and more guests, and it kind of got bigger and bigger. More people were listening in. Sort of near the end of this, we were like, this is becoming, a real thing, and we want to keep going. And so we decided to start actually recording things and putting stuff together.
We had some hiccups.
We have some hiccups, a lot of tech issues along the way. We were self-taught. We were also in full-time school, and both of us had jobs outside of school. We were very busy.
Yeah. And it should be noted that to this day, we are still being self-taught.
Yeah. Still have full-time jobs. But we do our best, and we've learned a lot along the way, and eventually have now turned it into an actual podcast
that hopefully people will enjoy.
So essentially what we hope that you get out of listening to us is, if you are a student and you want to learn about the industry, we are going to have guests on it that talk about the industry. We're going to talk about our personal experiences. I'll talk about my experiences in the industry. And if you're just generally interested in animation and you want to listen to stuff while you study, while you draw, whatever, we're going to do show reviews. We're going to talk about industry news.
And as always, when we do our interviews, we are going to be asking the questions that you want answered. So if you have questions, just send them to us.
Yeah, let us know.
And we will get them worked into our question list for
right.
each interviewee that we do.
We're here for you, and we want to, help get you inspired and excited to either be a part of the industry or even just to learn more about it if you're just interested in the industry. You don't have to be a student to listen to this podcast, but that's where we started.
But sometimes we just want to geek out about cartoons.
That's right.
Hey, Jordan.
Hey, Rich.
Here's an aside question. Who's your favorite animator of all time?
My favorite animator of all time?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Because I would guess, and it wouldn't be the guess that I would think you would think I would guess.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a tough one because you know how bad I am with names.
Right.
I mean, there's always been, Glenn Keane.
Glenn Keane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's, a very famous Disney
animator
and stuff, but...
Glenn Keane did Beast. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he did Beast and Beauty and the Beast. He's done some amazing stuff. Through all of school, all we were shown is, Glenn Keane hands and all of that stuff.
And see, this was what I would guess for you was Milk Call.
Yes! Okay,
yeah.
Yes, Milk Call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, those hands.
Is that the right answer? I don't...
No, that is the right answer.
Okay.
You're right.
See, I would think that you would assume that I would guess Miyazaki.
That's true. Who's your favorite animator, Rich?
Well, I know it's probably not going to surprise you when I say Chuck Jones.
Yeah.
Because I love Chuck Jones.
Not a surprise, but makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did some great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Really refined a lot of the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes characters and made them more, I guess, relatable?
Yeah.
I want to say. Yeah. He really worked a lot of more acting into those slapstick cartoons. And I appreciate that. And of course, he did The Grinch. Of course.
Which is amazing.
Can't glaze over that gem.
No, you can't.
Yeah, it's amazing. So that would be mine.
Okay.
I would say.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
There's a lot of Disney guys who are great. I can't deny Milk Call's beautiful hands.
I know.
But, there's so many of them that all, work overlapping each other.
Yeah.
There could be a string of names who are all just as good in different tiny respects.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny too because I feel like my perspective has changed because now that I'm in the industry, I think about my literal coworkers whose scenes I will stalk on our program, and I'll be like, "Oh, that was really cool. Who did this one?" And I'll be like, "Oh, it's this person." I'm gonna go.
It's my friend sitting right beside me.
I'm gonna go look at the other scenes they did recently, and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so good. I love that so much how they did that." And then I go through and I watch so it's the things I've been thinking about lately about specifically to good animators. It's literally been people that I work with
in your direct bubble.
In my direct bubble, rather than thinking about the classic stuff that I would have dreamed about when I was studying or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It's a cool perspective to have.
Yeah, that is cool.
And I won't name any names, but...
No, they're all good.
But I work with some pretty cool people too, so hopefully at one point we'll have some of them on the show, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Jordan.
Hey.
What are your top 3 favorite cartoon characters of all
Oh
time?
my gosh. You're killing me. Sophie's Choice. Okay.
But Sophie only got to choose one. Okay, you get 3.
I get 3. You're right. Okay, this is really hard. All right, we'll do this. But I'm going to preface this by saying this could definitely change. Because I think as I watch things, I'll think of new people and there's going to be characters I don't think about or I forgot about. But I'm like, oh, wait, no, but them. Oh, wait, no, but them.
Tastes change and new things come up and memories are not always as good as we think they are.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll do one and then you do one.
Okay.
Okay, so...
In no particular order.
In no particular order, I'll start with Mulan.
Love Mulan.
Mulan is it's a great film.
Real badass.
I was obsessed with her character and her feelings of, like, isolation and feeling different from her family and everyone else, essentially. Very much resonated with that.
Yeah.
And also just kind of, like, her fight against... like expectations of femininity and stuff that really resonated with me as well as a kid because I was.
Were you kind of like
I was
tomboyish?
kind of tomboy. Like I don't know. I still struggle with this because I think that there's parts of me that are really go both ways, but as a kid I really had a hard time with that.
Yeah.
Like because I never wanted to be a girly girl. I always wanted to be more tomboy. And like the music in it is amazing and. The animation is amazing. So I'm going to say Mulan. That was one of my big ones.
Nice.
One of my big classics.
Respectable.
Yeah.
Respect Mulan.
Yeah. How about you?
She's cool. Well, I'm not going to surprise anybody when I say Daffy Duck.
Yeah.
Specifically Chuck Jones era Daffy Duck.
Yeah.
I follow like a Looney Tunes like Reddit page.
Nice.
One of the questions was like, what do you prefer? Like, original, like, zany slapstick Daffy Duck or, like, Chuck Jones era Daffy Duck? I'm like, that's a good question. It should be obvious.
Yeah.
But for me, Chuck Jones era Daffy Duck is the best. Like, he's so great. He's so narcissistic, you know. Him and Bugs are, like, best friends and, like, worst enemies all at the same time. Like, it's...
Kind of like you and me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Can you do a Daffy Duck voice?
No, I'm not even going to try.
All right,
You don't want me spitting all over the table. But that was good effort.
Yeah. I was hoping you'd surprise me, but that's fine.
So,
okay.
Next on your list.
Okay, next on my list.
In no particular order.
Is The Grinch. From the original How the Grinch Stole Christmas, narrated by Boris Karloff, very important.
Not the weird
weird
version that came out of the same cartoon narrated by somebody else.
I don't know if I will reach
reason.
Anybody out there that has had similar feelings as I have and who scoured garage sales for years looking for extra copies of How the Grinch Stole Christmas on VHS, the original narrated by Boris Karloff, and then happened upon a copy narrated by someone else.
This is like
and
shocking to me.
It was so wrong. And it was an abomination.
Did he sound even close?
It was like you would watch it and you were like, something's wrong. And then like the more you watched, you're like, who is this guy? Something is horribly, horribly wrong. And then you pick up the VHS cover and you're looking at it and you're like, who the fuck's this guy? And I can't remember the guy because I'm pretty sure I burned the copy or something.
You know what? He doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But the Grinch.
He was like my favorite character. I watched that film every Christmas. It's a big part of my childhood. And I was obsessed with the Grinch. And I loved his cynicism and his general grumpiness. And I loved when, like, you know, that mischievous, like, crazy smile he does. And how they animated that. And it was just so great.
Flowy and beautiful and like, hideous.
Could you imagine when they were, like, if I got a scene and they were like, okay, this is, like, 400 frames, you're just animating him smiling. It must have been so hard.
This gets bigger and bigger, and when you think it's big enough, double it.
Yeah. And then make, like, his hair do a little, like, bloop.
He's going to smile right up through the tips of his hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Chuck Jones' masterpiece, for sure.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
What's your next one?
So I'm gonna list number 2. Obviously, as someone who grew up with the Ninja Turtles, my number 2 favorite cartoon character of all time is Raphael, the Red Ninja Turtle, for people who don't know, but not 1980s cartoon Raphael. I'm going with the 2000s cartoon Raphael.
Interesting.
It was a lot more like angry and badass, more like the original movie.
Right.
In the 80s, it was all like kid stuff. It was very, cartoony, and he was like, kind of had attitude, but like not really.
Yeah.
But yeah, then when the 2000s cartoon came out, that Raphael, he was
I have a question. In what particular timeline of the Ninja Turtles was the pizza, melty cheese, pull-apartiness animated the best? Was there ever a part where you were like, oh yeah, that pizza looks good?
Oh, yeah, it probably would still be the 80s cartoon.
Still be the 80s cartoon?
Yeah.
That's when the pizza
I
was
think,
like its cheesiest?
I mean, I've never thought about this, so I haven't focused super intently on the cheesy stringiness of the pizza. But I'm going to say in the 2000s cartoon, they were probably like really streamlining the pizza, not focusing on it as much as in the 80s cartoon.
Right.
When you just see that like top-down view of the pizza and all the little three-fingered hands going in to grab a slice, and it's all
and
pulling
it's all
apart. Yeah.
Because when I think Ninja Turtles, I think like, I just think
literally
of like, the
that.
pizza
That's
scenes.
all you think about.
And again,
Yeah.
just because like, unfortunately, I didn't really grow up with them because I didn't get to see them. Very, very infrequently. It would be at like a friend's house.
It's a tragedy because
I
it
know.
was the greatest thing in the world, and I have a bunch of seasons, and I watch it now, and I'm like, this is god awful crap.
Yeah,
Like, it's really bad. But it was my entire childhood, so like I love it so dearly.
See, and that's how I feel about what would have been one of my choices, but I took it off.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've discussed this.
So I really, really wanted to pick something, like I didn't want to pick all Disney and stuff, but also I really wanted to pick, like, I was like, well, what did I watch most of a kid? Yeah, what made me? And I would be like, oh, that's Sailor Moon. I was like obsessed with Sailor Moon as a kid. That was like my first animated show series that I would always like hope was on. I would watch it when I could. Again, like as I could, because I didn't really have a lot of TV when I was a kid.
But it was great.
It was so great, and it was amazing, and I was obsessed with Tuxedo Mask. I had a huge crush on Tuxedo Mask. That was like the first time I felt love.
Your true love.
My true love was Daria, and it'll always be. But then I watched it as an adult, and I was like, oh, this is not the same. Just because, like, the main character, like, Sailor Moon Usagi, she's annoying, and, like, you realize that the whole thing is that,
I only
like...
know her as Serena, because I'm American.
I know, but, like, you watch it, and you realize the whole thing is, like, she's being all insecure and stuff, which, like, is totally fair for her age and stuff, but then, then an enemy comes, and she's like, okay, we gotta go fight the enemy, and her Sailor Scouts go get the enemy, and all the other Sailor Scouts, even though they're way more awesome than she is, they all get pummeled, and then she gets pummeled at the end, and she's laying there, and she's, like, giving up, and she hasn't really tried to fight yet or anything, but she's just giving up, and then Tuxedo Mask comes in, and he throws a rose, and it cuts a slit in the enemy and falls to the ground, and it's like, poof, and they're like, oh my god, Tuxedo Mask is here, and he's like, don't worry, Sailor Moon, I know you could do this. And he doesn't do anything. He just comes and peps her up.
He just
throws the rose, and he gives her a pep talk, and she's like, or the funniest part is he reminds her what weapon she has, and he's like,
use your moon scepter.
He's like, Sailor, your moon scepter. She's like, oh, right. She literally says, like, oh, right. And then she takes it,
I forgot about this thing
she
in my
destroys
hand.
the enemy, and then it's over. And that's every single episode most of the time.
It's beautiful.
But, I didn't pick... So, that was a long-winded way to say I didn't pick Sailor Moon as my third one.
It's like... Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, not Sailor Moon.
So,
what is your number 3 that makes the cut?
Okay. So, my number 3, which might surprise some people, is from probably if I had to pick a favorite Disney movie, it's The Sword in the Stone. And so, it's obviously going to be Merlin from the Sword in the Stone.
Fantastic.
And from those of you who have seen Sword in the Stone, awesome. There's probably a lot of you that haven't because it's a very old classic Disney movie. If you do watch it, I'm not even going to tell you. If you watch it now, you might not like it. It's not necessarily amazing, but for some reason
But look at those hands.
Oh, God, those hands. Like, Merlin's hands, and he's doing the stuff with his hands, and he's always gesturing, and, like, he's such a cute outfit, and his long beard, and his beard's always getting stuck and stuff, and then, like, he pulls on it, and it gets all frizzy. It's just so fun. I just love that movie so much. And there's an owl in it, and I'm, like, obsessed with owls, and he's super grumpy. And then there's also a witch in it later, and she's really sassy and mean, and, like...
Marvelous Madame Mim.
Yeah. Marvelous Madame Mim. I just love that movie so much. And also, I just think it's beautiful. It was beautifully animated, and it's just gorgeous.
It is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And, like, it's... Like it's kind of a lot of kind of like muted colors, right? Because it's just kind of set in like medieval times. So there's a lot of kind of like just kind of dark blues and like backgrounds and like grays and like it's not pretty, but it's pretty.
It's exactly. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Old Disney classics. You gotta go.
It's beautiful, like 101 Dalmatians is beautiful. Even
though it's all scratchy the entire way through and they never bothered to clean it up, and that's just what gives it all its charm.
Exactly.
Yes. Love 101 Dalmatians, one of my all-time faves.
Yeah.
However, not one of my favorite characters because all the dogs are just the same.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, even the story itself for 101 Dalmatians, it's not something that's ever really hooked me. It didn't even hook me as a kid that much.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
It's such a pretty movie.
And you can appreciate it for that now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I love it for that.
Yeah.
So my final top 3 favorite cartoon character of all time. That's good sound effects. Also, Disney classic is Disney's Robin Hood.
Yes.
That little foxy Robin dude is so great. Like, it is one of my favorite movies of all time. Love Robin. Like, he's like the best. I've always had a weird Robin Hood thing. Disney's Robin Hood is like, he's definitely up there for me. One of my all-time faves. You know, and like fully selfless. Like, you know, some of the Robin Hoods are like a little more selfish in their motivations sometimes. This one was just the best. Like, he was absolute, like, 100% hero.
Yeah.
And he was great. And him and Little John, they had a great, you know, banter rapport going back and forth through the whole movie. They're like buddy thing. Yeah, like, it was good. Disney's Fox Robin Hood all the way.
That's good.
And that's
it's a good film. It's funny because I saw that more. I don't even think I think that's one of the few Disney classics I didn't see as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw it more as an adult. And I do like it. I just don't have that, like...
Any nostalgia.
Yeah, I don't have the nostalgia for it, unfortunately. But I can see it's good. And it's beautifully animated.
I mean, I was like me with Aristocats. Like, I didn't see that until I was grown.
Yeah, that can be kind of boring if you only see it as an adult.
Yeah, and if you don't care about cats, then, like, you should really, you know...
It's mostly for me, I just love the butler in the Aristocats. He's great.
Yeah, he is good.
The little evil butler. He's so great.
But we're going to wrap it up anyways.
Yeah.
This is us and who we are and what we do and why we do it.
All this to say is, like, all we want is for you to get out of this podcast is we want you to be inspired. If you have any interest in animation whatsoever, I think you'll find it interesting. We're going to do guest speakers. We're going to have reviews. We're going to do news and events, what you've been watching. There's lots of stuff coming. And, we hope you enjoy it.
And we always want you to give us any ideas that you might have if you want us to do a certain topic.
And, hey, if you are someone who is currently working in the industry in any sense under the animation umbrella and you want to be on the show, send us an email. Let us know.
100%. We would love to have people reaching out to do these things.
Absolutely. That'd be incredible.
Yeah.
Because that's really what we want.
We're dying to hear the things that you have to say.
That's right. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys.
We'll see you soon.
It's been a slice.
Bye. Thank you for listening. If you have as much fun with these episodes as we have making them, consider following us on Instagram and Twitter at Evening with an Artist.
Get up-to-date news on future events, episodes, and more.
You can also check out our website, eveningwithanartist.com, for a look at previous recordings, interviewees, news, and upcoming shows.
We would love to hear from you, so send us a DM on Instagram or email us at jordanandrich@eveningwithanartist.com.
Don't forget to join our community on Discord and see where it all started.
Here, you can chat with other members and submit your interview questions.
Did you enjoy the music? All the tunes on our podcast were created by our music man, Dougal Dawson. To learn more about Dougal and listen to an uncut version of the Iwa tunes, you can find him on our website.
If you'd like to support the show, visit the donation page on our website, linked throughout all our social media, to help fund equipment, production, and guest speakers.
Until next time,
I've been Rich.
I've been Jordan.
And this has been Evening with an Artist.